information in this podcast is of general nature only. It does not take into account your personal needs or objectives. Before investing in any product, you need to consider your personal situation, needs and objectives. Always seek professional advice for your particular circumstances and needs prior to investing.
All right. Hello, everybody. So, hi, Loz, and hello, Renee.
Hello.
We're very lucky to have another special guest back-to-back on different podcasts today. So Renee Martin is from Gallery Group. And as I will always try and do, Renee, I'd love for you to tell us about yourself and what you do and why you're here today.
Thanks, David. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm with Gallery Group, which is a wholesale builder developer in the Gold Coast. I am the social impact housing specialist at Gallery Group. So I head up that division, working very strongly across the SDA space, or other people may know it as the NDIS housing space. So I have a really great team backing me and supporting me in that role at Gallery Group, where we build out SDA homes in Southeast Queensland.
Cool. Now, have heard of and have seen and am part of Gallery's mail list. And Loz, I think we might have used their name, Gallery's name in vain once or twice in previous podcasts as an example of
You're
something
right.
not right.
Yeah, we have.
Right.
Gallery. Yeah, sorry, I'll talk to that quickly. So Renee and I go a little way back, which is lovely and lucky for both of us, I think. We were always having fairly in-depth conversations about what the market's doing at the moment, and have a nice feedback loop. So apart from the chats always being very interesting, they're always lots of fun. So Gallery Group have got a fairly stringent policy on location factor, which I really like, and that's why we've talked about it before, is that you guys really seem to hold the location of an SDA property as something really, really important prior to getting some stock out. And we've talked to that before, and being a really important factor in the success of an SDA, because it is such a big piece to making the investment a successful one. When you build in locations that aren't desirable and don't have any facilities or accessibility built into the community there, it can just be a complete flop. So that's something the Gallery
and look,
do really well.
I love this. This is like a great opportunity to jump straight into a pet passion of mine. And said another way, Lauren, Gallery is doing something which I really appreciate, which is not grifting poor mum and dad investors, right?
Yeah.
And look, at Disability Housing Solutions, the phone rings every single week with someone who's bought a property out on the outskirts of XYZ, whatever, doesn't matter. Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, everyone's got them. On the outskirts of some city, 30 kilometres from anywhere, or quite literally sometimes 30 kilometres from anywhere, they've paid $800,000-$900,000 on a promise they're going to get a 3-participant house filled miles from anywhere. And it gets under my skin. You might not know, Renee, if you had a chance to look at previous episodes. We've spoken about this quite a bit, and I get really ticked off. I've done a whole 40-minute video just called Grifters. Just talking.
And we had to cut it down too.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is me sort of keeping the lid on my frustration about this kind of stuff. And look, part of what Lauren was just talking about location. With location, by virtue of location, comes price tag. And we mentioned it very quickly before we started recording that the price of the product that Gallery Group is putting to market, it's more expensive than the grifters, right? So if you're watching this and you've got but I've got a guy who's going to sell me $800,000 home, he's promised me 2 or 3 blah, right? I'm telling you, man, you've been lied to, and you're about to get in a lot of trouble, because that price tag should have a 1 in front of it, right? Probably.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be $1 million, $1.3 million, because it's going to be closer to some sort of central area with better access to infrastructure. I don't want to bang on, but Renee, what are your thoughts on that kind of?
Look, it's the message that we're delivering every day into the market. We need to inform clients. They don't understand the SDA space. They see it as being a high-yielding, high cash flow property investment choice, and it is, but it only is if you get it right. There's no point you're buying in oversaturated areas where you're right, there's no local infrastructure. It's 30 kilometres away from anywhere. Of course, you're going to hold vacancy rates, and that's what we see in the market. And that this is my passion passion. My passion is about making sure we're having better outcomes for participants.
Yeah.
A better outcome for a participant every day of the week is being in a superior location.
Well, but the thing with that is, right, it's not like participants, if someone in the western suburbs of Sydney buys a property from some Queensland spruiker, there's no bad outcome for the participants because they're never going to live there anyway.
No, well, that's true.
The investor's being grifted and ripped off. And that money could, well, I suppose the outcome could be if they'd spent a little bit more, that outcome could have been placed somewhere to do a better social outcome if they had a more integrous builder they're working with or a selling group.
Oh, absolutely. And we see it all the time. People are in financial because they despair because they've got no tenants in these homes that they have forked out for. And when you are going into superior locations, the land price is driving that. So you'll see that our price point is higher because we're offering that superior product in a great location. And, when we talk about close to local infrastructure, we don't want to be anywhere between sort of 3-4 kilometres out from your local shops, closer if public transport, cafes, Woolies, Coles, things like that. It's not necessarily about the hospital. It's just about everyday living.
Yeah. If you've got to go to hospital, you've got your supports van there to take you to hospital.
Correct.
You don't need to go to walk to hospital.
That's right.
But you'd love to be able to walk to the shops. I mean, I live in a place where I can walk down to the Coles and there's my gym and a bottle-o and that's what I want, right?
Great combination of facilities.
And there's a bakery too.
Bottle-o is actually so important. And you want facilities, and we're seeing it, and with Lauren and DHS team as well. I was going to say that we're seeing that response in the marketplace. People are loving the product because they're like, oh, this is great. Even the SIL operators and the support coordinators, they're enjoying the product because of where it is located, how it's built, and it's going to make their participant lives so much better.
You touched on such an important thing because it's not, yes, it's a more expensive product and yes, it's superior location, but it makes life easier for the people who are making life easier for the people you're trying to make life easier for.
Absolutely.
Right.
It has to work. It has to work for everyone because it is a joint venture, and people are in these homes supporting our SDA participants. These people need support. They need that network of people. And if you're making it in an area where it's easy for someone to get to and from work, it's great.
Yeah. Lauren and I yesterday we were out at Cleveland together, looking at some houses out there that Disability Housing Solutions manages the SDA for. And we're having a chat to the participants, to the tenants, to the people who live there, and it's such a good location. You can walk down to the shops, you can walk to cafes and bakeries, and they feel really safe. And some of the participants have moved out of social homes to be there. They've moved out of places where they might have had an accessible home, but the location was just so crap. They'll go all the way out to Cleveland, which might not be close to their support networks, but there's the infrastructure and they feel safe and secure and they've got that amenity. It's so important.
It was really lovely to sort of see the full circle. I've always been involved in the tenancy matching, and so hearing initially that sort of turbulent time where somebody's got to move from a place into a new place, there's so much change and so many questions and so much expectation on how that's going to feel. And so visiting a bunch of our tenants yesterday, we did get that feedback 10 to 12 months after they'd moved in on what had changed for them. And I was so excited to just hear how much the location had made their life easier. And quite a few of the tenants actually just said, what's changed for me is, I just feel like I've taken off a really big, heavy overcoat, and it just, I'm feeling lighter. I'm feeling like I have the brain power to just consider my future and to, really make new friends and to try new things and to manage life so much better.
But what you have there, if you're a landlord of a property like that, if you're the property owner, you've got sticky tenants. They will be there as long as they can. They'll never leave if they don't have to, right? And as a landlord, that's what you want. You want that person who loves the house, is happy with it, and will stay there forever.
And that's the message that we ring to our investors. Yes, okay, you may be paying an extra couple of $100,000, but you're going to have participants that are happy and tenants there that want to stay in that location. And so you're generating that income that you're looking to achieve in an SDA home. Because, we don't want it to make it about numbers, but it does come down to that sometimes. And when we get the model right on the ground for the people that we're supporting, you get the investment right for the people that are investing. So it's a key, it's key relationship.
Speaking about the numbers, I talk with banks, and I've got other businesses in commercial property, and so I'm fairly in tune with what bank thoughts and feelings and how they look at risk and things like that. And there's an emerging group of banks and the big banks that are saying, okay, the default rate on some of these crappy things that have been sold by these spruikers out in the outer suburbs of whatever, the default rate's climbing. And so, in your role, Renee, like you work with a builder. I mean, you have to deal with banks and drawdown payments and finance. And what are you seeing in the market about investors' access to funds? Is that tightening? And can you see that yet, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We literally had a meeting on Tuesday with our preferred broker and one of the major funders in the space. They're move towards only working with preferred partners, such as Gallery, that actually understand the marketplace and are creating better investment outcomes, because they are seeing defaults on loans where they've lent in an area where there is high vacancy rates. So they are smartening up about it. They want to see good products. They want to support it, but they also want to make sure that it's being supported at the right level, because it is a big investment. So there is definitely a change coming through. And look, the big banks have been shied away from this space for a while now. They lend sometimes to commercial clients that already have businesses with them. And they are looking into it a bit further as well. We've got a couple of clients going through the big banks, but once again, they're commercial business clients. So it's important for everybody to understand.
So does that mean sort of the big banks are a bit skittish and it's more than our second tier lenders, things like that?
Yeah, pretty much.
So their rates are a little bit higher than the big banks, so half a point to a point.
Yes, it's about that, and it is a commercial lend as well. So to get to take into account the income projections or the income attached to an SDA home, you need a commercial valuation. So it's still a residential property, but it's lent on a little bit differently. So to get that commercial valuation, that commercial lend, it is a process, and people need to be aware that they are understanding where is a good area and where is not. Some people are even flagged in the system that if they're bringing a property with an investor to that lender, they'll just say no.
But it's really interesting. Sorry, Loz, you were going to say something.
Look, I just have a couple of things in my mind that it's always good for me to understand. The current LVR, because we often get questions on it, and I think you'd probably be best placed to answer that of what's happening at the moment, and how are the valuations going at the moment? Have they been stacking up?
Yeah, so LVRs are actually really great. You can do 80, 20, 90, 10 at the moment.
That's and much better.
Very good. The valuations generally stack up. So I've done quite a few over the last 6 months, and let's say out of 50, maybe 2 didn't stack up because the valuers weren't quite aware how to value an SDA home, didn't quite understand vacancy rates and things like that. So they adopted really high vacancy rates because they'd seen the market. But really on the products that we're doing at Gallery, we just had one in Narang the other day, valued $100,000 over because of the location, the income, and the demand. So they did a little bit of research, and providers like yourself are saying, we don't have anything, we need Gold Coast or we need Sunshine Coast, wherever it may be. When those demand metrics are taken into account, we are seeing really great valuations come through.
Are they valuing on a cap rate, or how are they valuing?
Yeah, so a cap rate does come into play. It's not great. It's not what the financial institutions or super funds would be looking at. But for mum and dad investors as such, they sit between, and it depends on the valuer. They're adopting sort of between 12 and 15%.
It's quite high, 12, 15 for a cap rate value.
It is quite high. It is quite high, but they're still valuing at that price point, which is
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the part of my concern for mum and dad investors with SDA property is, as you're describing, it's more of a commercial property. It's a residential home, right? And there's
Mm.
people running a business out of there. There's things happening there. There's trade occurring within that premises. It is a commercial enterprise at someone's home. It's a really weird hybrid.
It is.
And so the my thoughts have been for a while, if you're an investor, I've spoken to superannuation funds who say mum and dad shouldn't do this at all. I don't necessarily agree that mum and dads don't or shouldn't invest in SDA, but I think they should be experienced investors, maybe not necessarily sophisticated investors by the book, but certainly more experienced. If this is your first investment property, I probably wouldn't have an SDA as your first investment property. I would want to have the experience of going through a couple of property transactions before I looked at SDA. I mean, what do you see, Renee, with the people who come through the door? Are they
Look, it's
everyone
such
or?
a mix. No, it's such a mix. We do have everyone. If you're being guided by the right team, I do have a couple of freshies that are new investors to the market, and this is their first investment. They've got people in their life and loved ones that have a disability, so they have that type of lived experience. So it's a
Oh,
little
okay.
bit
Well, yeah.
different.
Well, that's very different.
It
That's
is.
yeah.
Seasoned investors, of course, love this. If they're doing it right, they'll be very cautious about what they're doing, but they'll head in. And the way that we structure it, we're about educating. So we love to educate people, and we feel like if they're guided and they follow those steps, and then it's a safe investment. But fresh investors have a lot of questions. They don't understand it and they get very nervous. So
Yeah.
we are of the same opinion. Look, if this isn't for you, let's look at a different product. We
Yeah.
have obviously different products at Gallery in our traditional space. So it's kind of like a real mix that come through the door.
I must say it's really nice to see, a wholesale builder that's catering to the mums and dads, like yes, in that slightly higher price bracket, that's really allowing them to come into the space with less risk, because of your strategy. There's all the social impact funds and institutional investment happening in the arena, which is great. And to me, they're often tied to the apartment buildings and the sort of bigger developments, which we very much need as well. But the housing stock, I do find that, that's sort of like the mum and dad cohort. And at least, with a builder that's actually doing their due diligence on the area and the location and their build type and, current demand, at least you guys are delivering a mum and dad friendly SDA stock to the market. It's really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're an important segment. I just really want them to come into it eyes wide open with a couple of runs on the board before, because it can get sideways. And there's just, especially if you start talking commercial finance versus resi finance, they might have bought their own home, 20 years ago, and now they've got to get a commercial loan. It's just a different animal. I'd love them to sort of, be more aware. And if, someone like yourself, Renee, and your team, education's so important. There's an old saying, knowledge dispels fear. So you can't know enough about these kind of things. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really fortunate. Lauren was at one of our events just recently in the Carlisle Hotel in Brisbane, and we had the finance team there. So we had the brokers there that work in the space and do the commercial lend, and they were really able to explain it so well to clients in the room that could understand it at their level. It doesn't need to be complex. So it's an interesting space. Residential home, commercially valued, commercially led. It's interesting.
I was at a conference with Lauren here. Lauren, you go to a lot of conferences a while ago in Brisbane, and there was, I won't say their names. It was one of these brokers. I won't lie myself, right? But their way to get finance through was they're aligned with the finance guy who set up a charity, and the charity buys the house and they pay back the charity. There's donations and tax. Very complicated, and I probably think illegal. But that's how people are trying to solve this problem, because they don't have a product that works. When you've got a product that works, valuations can come in $100,000 over the contract price. Pretty cool. So sorry, Loz, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's testament to making sure that you've got such a good team around you. If you are an investor, listening in and sort of trying to figure out whether this is for you or not. I mean, Renee will say the same thing. We've always said the same thing, is get a good team around you. A team that understands the demand at the end of the line that's going to make it all tick, and your real estate investment advice person or whoever's selling you the property, make sure they know what they're doing, and align with a builder that also has the experience and an ethical strategy. They're not going to leave you out in the lurch once they've got their commission. That's really important.
Because we've seen that happen quite a few times in the marketplace. People walk away.
many.
Oh, as soon as you pay, they're all killed. So look, Renee, we'll try and keep these things at about 20 minutes. I think we're about there.
Okay.
So quick disclaimer, Disability Housing Solutions and Gallery Group are not commercially affiliated at all. There's no kickbacks. There's no cash for comment. There's nothing like that. This is just us sharing with you that we think this is a group that's doing it pretty well. And if you're in the market, please get on. What I'll do when I edit this, Renee, I'll put Gallery Group's website at the bottom. Go and check out Gallery Group's website, get in touch, and then come back to us as your SDA provider. It's great.
Absolutely.
All right. Renee, is there anything else that you'd love to say or want to say, or before we wrap up?
No, not really. Just to touch on the reason why we work so closely with DHS is because we know that relationship is so important to a successful investment. So having a really great provider in place, and that's why we work with them. So yeah, I love it. I love being able to change people's lives every day. It's great.
Thanks, Renee.
It's good.
Thank
It's
you,
nice to
Lauren.
work together. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Renee. Nice to see you.